Discover the incredible and touching journey through the underworld, 5 surprising myths revealed. Emily stood in her dimly lit classroom, surrounded by soft whispers of textbooks and hushed murmurs of students. She felt like a ghost drifting through the halls of a place that once ignited her passion. Knots of anxiety twisted in her stomach as she juggled the responsibilities of molding young minds while feeling invisible in their lives. Here she was, a passionate history teacher, yet each day blurred into the next, amplifying her sense of unimportance. The pressures of rising costs were palpable, supplies dwindled as expectations ballooned, and the weight of an outdated educational system lay heavy on her shoulders. As her thoughts spiraled, she thought about her recent struggles, how she balanced lesson plans with escalating bills that seemed to pile on faster than her dreams could catch up. The school board's focus on standardized testing felt stifling, squeezing the life out of her creativity. Could she reshape her students' futures when her own felt so grim? She glanced at their disengaged faces. Were they even aware of her efforts? The pang of solitude pierced her heart. That evening, Emily climbed the creaky stairs to her grandmother's attic, searching for family stories lost to time. Dust motes danced in the air as she rummaged through forgotten treasures. Her fingers brushed against a cold metallic shape, a vintage pendant, intricately designed with symbols of her ancestry. Immediately, memories of her great-grandmother's tales echoed in her mind, the stories of courage, sacrifice, and love that formed the foundation of the family she barely understood. At that moment, a flicker of hope ignited within her, challenging her despair. Her best friend, Sarah, called out of the blue, inviting her to an academic conference on mythology only a few days away. "You need this, Em. It's perfect for your career." But Emily's heart sank as guilt seeped in. Could she leave her students behind when they depended on her, just like her ancestors depended on their past to light the way? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Emily sifted through her great-grandmother's myths, finding 5 extraordinary stories that highlighted the cost of ambition, the fierce sacrifices that transformed lives, and the tenacity that she admired but never felt she possessed. Each story was a poignant reminder of what her forebears endured. Yet, was it selfish to aspire for more when others were left behind? The realization weighed heavily on her. Could she abandon her roots for personal gain? As she prepared for the conference days later, the anticipation turned to dread. What if Derek, her old academic rival, showed up? Would he overshadow her in front of people who once valued her voice? As the dates drew near, tensions thrummed within her, pushing her to confront everything: her past insecurities, her sacrifices, and her frantic desire to prove her worth. With her heart thrumming wildly, Emily stood on the brink of rediscovery, at the crux of loyalty and aspiration. Would she be brave enough to reclaim not just her story, but her place in the world, or would she let it slip through her fingers? Days crept by as Emily prepared for the conference, each sunrise burning a reminder of her internal conflict into her psyche. The pendant's cool touch lingered on her skin, acting as a talisman of courage. With the decision looming, she faced her daily lessons with a sense of detachment. Designated learning objectives felt like chains shackling her creativity. Her students resembled hollow vessels, and she feared that her passion was pouring out of her, leaving only the despair of her reality. In moments of solitude, she'd rehearse her speech for the conference, imagining each syllable would conjure a piece of the self she lost along the way. But the fear of inadequacy coiled tightly around her heart, constricting any sparks of confidence. The night before the event, Emily wrestled with the box of emotions clamoring for attention. Blurriness enveloped her vision as she scanned the regrets of the past and uncertainties of the future. Was she truly cut out for this journey, or was she perpetually destined to drift like a phantom in someone else's narrative? As she lay in bed, imagery of Derek appeared, intermingling with visions of her ancestors, who fought fiercely against adversities in pursuit of their legacies. Would they approve of her? Would they support her quest for personal growth? A mix of shame and ambition spiraled within her, amplifying her restlessness. She turned in bed, the sheets twisted around her like the turmoil in her mind. Morning light broke the stalemate, casting clarity over her anxiety. Standing before the bathroom mirror, Emily scrutinized her reflection, searching for resolve amidst the sea of hooded eyes. The weight of history pressed heavily on her chest. In a moment fueled by desperation, she clasped her great-grandmother's pendant, inviting the wisdom of the past to wash over her. "This is not just about you, Em," she whispered, "it's about the legacy you create." Realization struck her like lightning. She had a choice not merely to leap towards a personal dream or hold on to loyalty but to rediscover her passion for teaching through her own journey of growth. Traveling to the conference would not be an act of betrayal, it would be a step towards igniting her brilliance for her students. With newfound resolve, Emily dedicated space within herself for ambition sharp and immediate. Her teaching voice rang clearer as she penned her lesson for the day, using the stories of struggle and ambition from her great-grandmother as the backbone for historical discussions. The echoes of myth would intertwine with her students' lives, allowing them to relate and redefine their narratives, just as she aimed to redefine her own. The following day, she entered the first session of the conference, heart racing. Thrumming beneath her anxious exterior was a burgeoning sense of purpose. Derek loomed across the room, and instead of dread, she felt a strange excitement. This was not a competition, it was a confluence of ideas, a space for her to craft her voice anew. As Derek approached, a hint of a smirk surfaced on his lips, but Emily stood firm, ready to engage. The moment had arrived not to undermine him, but to articulate her beliefs, igniting passion in others as she had once hoped to ignite passion in her students. "Emily," he said, a challenge embedded in his tone. "I didn't expect to see you here." The time had come to face her fears, to confront the insecurities that had shadowed her aspirations. With every ounce of courage she could muster, she responded, determined to prove to both him and herself that her narrative was ready to be transformed, and it all began now. Emily squared her shoulders as she stood in front of the gathered audience. Familiar faces blended with new ones, their expectant gazes igniting an inner fire. She felt the persistent thrum of anxiety but recognized it for what it was: a signal to dig deeper, to transform that energy into something positive. The whisper of her great-grandmother's wisdom echoed in her mind, urging her forward. "You have a voice," she reminded herself silently. "Let it be heard." As she took the stage, Emily felt a shift in the air. The conference had attracted educators, thinkers, and visionaries, a delicate web of experiences and insights ready to be shared. She opened her talk with a story about her great-grandmother, the struggles of immigration and the resilience that carved a path toward a better life. Her words wove a narrative tapestry that connected the personal to the universal. Derek lingered at the edge of the crowd, arms crossed, his expression betraying nothing. But beneath that steely exterior, Emily sensed a subtle shift. The uneasiness she had felt earlier was evaporating, replaced by a newfound determination. As she articulated her beliefs regarding the power of education and personal growth, she watched her audience lean in, captivated. For the first time, Emily realized that she was not merely reciting facts or figures, she was engaging in an exchange of ideas. She opened herself up, allowing her passion to seep through the cracks of doubt. Moments that once felt daunting now unfurled before her as opportunities to connect. Each nod from the crowd affirmed her progress, anchoring her to the present moment. "I believe we all hold the power to inspire change, to transform our narratives," she declared, and with each syllable, she felt her confidence swell, buoyed by the acceptance of those around her. But as she wrapped up her presentation, a familiar voice interrupted her thoughts. "That was a rather melodramatic interpretation of history, don't you think?" Derek's tone was clipped, as though he sought to undermine her light, pulling back the curtain on his critical nature. Emily fought to maintain her composure. His skepticism loomed like an unswept shadow behind her success. The moment of truth was inching closer, an opportunity to confront the antagonism that had followed her for so long. "Derek," she replied, taking a deep breath, "isn't the point to inspire?" She felt the weight of his gaze, but this time, it no longer crushed her spirit. "History isn't just about dates and events, it's about people, about how their stories shape our lives today. Isn't that worth celebrating?" The room stirred in response. Whispers bounced off the walls, uncertainty spiraling in tandem with anticipation. Emily had shifted from the role of a passive participant to a formidable contender in this arena, and for the first time, she didn't feel the need to downplay her convictions. Derek posed another question, designed to jab at her softness, yet Emily sensed a change within him. He no longer bore the mask of a critic but seemed intrigued, as if he were wrestling with her words. She saw him as a reflection of herself, struggling, yet striving for connection. As she continued to engage with him, Emily found herself dissecting their dynamic. His challenges pushed her to defend her perspective more boldly, and in doing so, she unearthed layers of her own professional identity. Each exchange sharpened her thoughts, honing her vision of what teaching and perhaps life could entail. The day faded, but the energy in the room remained electric. As she stepped off the stage, she felt lighter, liberated from the burdens that had once held her back. Emily looked around, her heart swelling at the possibilities that lay ahead. But even amidst the triumph, there lingered an unsettling question: was her transformation complete, or was it merely the beginning of a more profound evolution? With this thought etched in her mind, she ventured into the crowd, unsure of what awaited in the twisting paths of her renewed journey. Would she embrace the challenges that lay ahead? Or would fear claw its way back into her narrative, threatening to dismantle all she had worked to achieve? The answers awaited. Emily wove through the bustling crowd, adrenaline still coursing through her veins. Each handshake and smile felt charged with energy. People approached her, eager for conversation, forging connections she hadn't anticipated. She was now not just an educator conveying ideas, but a beacon for those seeking inspiration. Yet, despite the surface-level excitement, a disquieting thought nestled within her. Could this be a one-time encounter, a flash of brilliance fading into the past? The shadows of doubt crept into her mind, whispering reminders of her earlier insecurities. However, she quickly caught herself. This moment was not just a fleeting high, it was a stepping stone toward a greater purpose. Derek's presence loomed nearby, a silent reminder of the complexity of her growth. Their exchange had shifted something within her, he had become more than just an antagonist. Emily found herself reflecting more on his skepticism. Was it simply a mask for insecurity? Curiosity gnawed at her, driving her to seek understanding. "Emily," a voice broke through her thoughts. It was Sarah, an educator she admired. "Your presentation was powerful. It resonated with me." Sarah's compliment felt validating, igniting a deeper desire within Emily to refine her own philosophies. "Thank you, Sarah." It was nerve-wracking but essential, Emily confessed, her voice steady despite the ricochet of emotions within her. "You know, the way you connected your personal story to a broader narrative is rare. It makes the topic not just intellectual but genuine," Sarah continued, her eyes alight with fervor. The compliment fueled Emily's resolve. She realized that the combination of personal experience and professional insight could serve her well. She wanted to make her teaching approach evolve into something unique, allowing her students' voices to be woven into the fabric of their learning experiences. "Can we collaborate?" Emily blurted out, her heart racing at the thought. "I've been thinking about a project that integrates storytelling into our curriculum. I believe it can shift how our students engage with the material." Sarah's eyebrows raised, reflecting her surprise and interest. "Absolutely. A creative approach to storytelling would not only engage students but allow them to see their histories as valuable. Let's set a time to brainstorm." With excitement dancing in her gaze, Sarah agreed. As the idea took root, Emily felt a piece of her purpose becoming clearer. This wasn't just about proving herself in front of an audience. It was about fostering a collaborative environment where others could thrive alongside her. The very essence of teaching became a shared journey rather than a solo flight. However, just as she began to consider the possibilities ahead, she caught another glimpse of Derek, still watching her with an inscrutable look. While her heart raced with possibilities, unease settled in. The confrontation had been exhilarating, but what would the aftermath mean for her? Would he challenge her further, or had she made a necessary opening for dialogue? As she continued her conversations, a nagging question persisted: what would her relationship with Derek evolve into? She needed to confront that animosity, but also view it through a lens of potential growth. She envisioned their future exchanges not as friction, but as a dynamic force stimulating her development. Returning to her thoughts about the project, she allowed herself to wonder. If Derek's skepticism could foster her growth, maybe they could find common ground. This could be a turning point for both of them, an opportunity to confront their narratives directly. Determined to explore that path, Emily felt a shift within her own narrative. However, the apprehension lingered. Was she strong enough to transform their conflicts into collaborations, or would she slip back into self-doubt? The questions hung in the air as she ventured deeper into the crowd, ready to embrace the challenges yet to come. The journey ahead promised to push the bounds of her comfort, and a latent tension crackled within her. Would she seize the coming opportunities, or would she falter? As she surged into conversations, a realization struck her: she stood at the edge of possibility, but the real work was only just beginning. The time had come to face both her past and future, and the outcomes remained tantalizingly uncertain. Emily stood in the thrumming midst of the crowd, her pulse echoing the vibrant energy surrounding her. The conversations flowed like a current, each exchange providing a nugget of insight. Still, her mind tilted towards the unease rooted in her recent interactions with Derek. What had once felt like a mere annoyance now simmered with the potential for substantial growth. She recalled his penetrating gaze, his skepticism a chisel against her confidence. Every time she saw him, a wave of tension surged within her, compelling her to confront her own vulnerabilities. The more she pondered, the clearer it became: this was not merely about her feelings of inadequacy but rather a pivotal opportunity to engage in dialogue. Emily made a choice. She would not flinch from the confrontation but would embrace it as a channel for mutual understanding. Focus on action, she whispered to herself, drawing on the adrenaline that had coursed through her during her presentation. She began focusing on the practicalities of her collaboration with Sarah. Was there a way to intertwine storytelling with elements of emotional resilience? Those very struggles that shaped her narrative could pave the way for her students to explore their own journeys. As thoughts spiraled, Emily's focus shifted to Derek. He wouldn't simply be an obstacle, he could be an ally in this exploration of personal storytelling. What could their discussions reveal if she approached them differently? Embracing her vulnerability could flip their dynamic on its head, transforming friction into fuel for both of their developments. With newfound resolve, Emily scanned the room. She spotted a cozy corner, largely unoccupied. To work through her ideas, she needed a brief retreat. She'd map out her vision for the storytelling project until she felt a shadow beside her. Emily, Derek's voice pulled her from her thoughts. She straightened, heart racing slightly, yet she resolved to engage rather than retreat. I wanted to talk, he continued, his tone less confrontational than before. About your presentation. The admission hung in the air, laden with ambiguity. She watched as he attempted to uncover whichever hidden truths lay within their past exchanges. Listening intently, she already felt the rush of potential in this moment. Derek was no longer just a skeptic, he was a catalyst for her growth. What did you think? She asked, genuinely curious. It was impactful, he said finally. But I questioned whether you truly believed what you shared. It felt scripted. His words, although initially disorienting, catalyzed her introspection. What if I told you that was an oversimplification? Emily dared to reframe his critique. Those stories were drawn from my experiences, my struggle. I'm still working through them. For the first time, a flicker of respect passed behind his eyes. They stood on a precipice now, a space where their perceptions could intertwine. Then let's explore that, he suggested, a surprising openness radiating from him. We can talk about narratives, what they mean, how they shape us. I'd like to understand your perspective. Nervous anticipation buzzed around her as she processed his offer. This could be a turning point. The thought spurred her forward, igniting her determination. She was ready to navigate the unpredictable waters of their new engagement. Offering a tentative smile, she nodded. Let us meet then. I think our shared challenges can create something meaningful. The proposition felt genuine, filling her with both hope and trepidation. As their initial conversation began to unravel the layers of mutual skepticism, Emily felt the contours of her own understanding expand. This was a moment of genuine collaboration, illuminating potential avenues for professional and personal growth. With a powerful sense of purpose igniting her spirit, she sensed the day ahead would shape not only her own narrative but also Derek's. A thrilling path lay before them, laden with possibility, but the outcome hinged upon her ability to confront her self-perceptions head-on. Was she truly prepared to navigate this complex terrain without slipping back into doubt? The question loomed as a pivotal challenge, and she wasn't sure if her resolve could hold against the waves of uncertainty threatening to crash in. Blazing with the energy of potential, Emily made her way back into the crowd, ready to seize the moment. With each step, her thoughts stirred around her evolving relationship with Derek, and the challenges they would collectively face. Was their collaboration just beginning, or would it deter into conflict once more? The truth awaited just around the corner. Emily leaned against the wall in the small cafe where she and Derek had agreed to meet. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the chatter of patrons, a cozy backdrop to the brewing storm of her thoughts. She drummed her fingers nervously against the wood table, the rhythm a reflection of her anxious anticipation. Today would be pivotal, a crossroads widening under the weight of their discussions. As she waited, she mentally reviewed her objectives for their conversation. She needed clarity, not just about her project but also about herself. The confrontation with Derek had ignited a flicker of self-awareness that coursed through her veins, pushing her toward deeper introspection. What surprised her most was how much his skepticism had stung initially, but it also pushed her boundaries, revealing a strength she hadn't fully acknowledged. When the door swung open and Derek entered, the familiar tension returned. He walked with a composed confidence, looking around before meeting her gaze. Emily swallowed hard, willing herself to stand her ground. She was not meeting a foe, this was a collaboration in its infancy, rooted in the shared desire for understanding. I'm glad we could find time to talk, he began, pulling out the chair across from her. Me too, she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. I think it's important for us to get on the same page about the project before we dive into narratives. That way, our conversations can be more productive. Derek nodded, his expression open, yet his brow furrowed slightly. That sounds fair. I'm curious, what does emotional resilience mean to you in the context of storytelling? The question caught her off guard. Engaging with his inquiry required her to break down a complex idea into relatable terms. Emotional resilience is about encountering difficult experiences without losing sight of your core identity. Stories are powerful because they illustrate personal struggles and how they shape us. I want to help my students understand that vulnerability can be a strength. She watched the gears turn in his mind. So you're aiming to create a safe space where both you and the students can share. It's about honesty rather than a polished narrative. Yes. That's exactly it. Emily felt a wave of relief wash over her. The clarity of her own vision surprised her, it illustrated the very foundation upon which she wished to build her project. I want them to recognize that the most impactful stories, whether theirs or others, come from a place of authenticity, no matter how messy or unpolished it may seem. He seemed to ponder her response, the furrows on his brow deepening as he processed. And what about you? This vulnerability, it's not just for your students, right? You need that authenticity for your own narrative as well. The air in the cafe felt heavier with the weight of his observation. She hesitated, grappling with the truth of his words. Honestly, I've been struggling to embrace that vulnerability in myself. I've kept certain layers hidden, even from myself. Derek leaned in slightly, curiosity brimming in his eyes. Why? The simplicity of his question exposed the complexities weaving through her mind. Emily felt herself unraveling, the tension within transforming into an echo of her insecurities. Fear, I suppose. Fear of judgment, fear of failure. It's easier to play things safe. What if you could let go of that fear, even just for this project? Embrace vulnerability not just as a concept, but as a living part of your approach. It could change everything. His words ignited a torrent of reflection. Could she really shed the armor she fortified around herself? It felt like a daunting leap. Yet the very essence of what she desired for her students mirrored what she longed to understand within her own narrative. So, are you advocating for me to lead by example? She asked, a faint smile creeping onto her lips. Isn't that a tad risky? Of course, he replied with a gentle chuckle. But then, isn't that the crux of storytelling? Taking the leap. In that moment, Emily realized this. Connection with Derek was more complex than she previously recognized. He had become a sounding board, a mirror reflecting her own uncertainties. Yet, he also offered an opportunity for daring exploration into her uncharted depths. As they continued their conversation, Emily felt the frayed threads of doubt begin to weave together into a new tapestry. Each exchange held the promise of transformation, both for her and for the project they envisioned. Suddenly, she found herself burgeoning with the desire to confront her own narrative with the same ferocity she sought to instill in her students. Yet, beneath this newfound determination lingered an unsettling question: was she truly ready to expose her vulnerabilities, or would the fear of judgment loom larger when tested in reality? The time was nearing for a decision, and the clock was ticking. As they wrapped up their discussion, Emily felt a shift within her, but clarity evaded her grasp. Would confronting her fears ultimately bring empowerment, or would it precipitate her undoing? One thing was certain: the next encounter would test the limits of her resolve like never before. Emily left the cafe with a busy mind and a racing heart. The conversation with Derek had peeled back a layer of her self-awareness, allowing a raw vulnerability to seep into her thoughts. As she walked through the bustling streets, the world around her appeared sharper, the sounds and colors vivid. She felt a strange blend of exhilaration and trepidation, as if standing on the edge of a precipice. In the days that followed, Emily began to document her thoughts, each entry pushing her deeper into the chasm of her own narrative. She wrote about her dreams and failures, the stories from her students that echoed her own struggles with fear and judgment. Every word was an invitation to embrace discomfort, an exploration of what lay beneath her carefully constructed persona. At times, doubt clawed at her resolve. What if the perception of her transparency only exposed her fragility? But the more she pressed these fears to paper, the more control she felt over them. It became evident that vulnerability was not synonymous with weakness, rather, it was an avenue toward deeper connections and authenticity. That day, Emily decided to visit her old college. She'd heard about a workshop on personal storytelling, and the sudden urge to participate pulled her like a magnet. As she entered the familiar auditorium, the ambience flooded her with nostalgia. The same mingled sense of coffee and chalk greeted her like an old friend, yet now, she approached the space as a different person. Taking her seat among the participants, Emily felt a mixture of anxiety and excitement bubbling within her. The facilitator, a dynamic woman with an infectious energy, encouraged everyone to share a brief personal story related to vulnerability. Emily's heart raced as each participant spoke, each narrative a thread weaving a tapestry of shared human experience. When it was Emily's turn, the room fell silent, all eyes turning toward her. The moment felt monumental, an act of courage that demanded every ounce of her strength. She took a deep breath and began recounting a pivotal moment from her life, a time she had grappled with failure in a project that meant everything to her. She articulated the shame she felt and how it pushed her into hiding, fearing how others would perceive her shortcomings. As she spoke, something remarkable happened. The realization that others shared similar fears lifted a weight off her shoulders. They were nodding, empathizing with her truth. In return, she felt a sense of solidarity emerge, binding her to this group of strangers, highlighting a universal human experience. When she finished, there was a moment of silence before they erupted into applause. The room pulsed with validation, and Emily felt a warmth spreading through her chest. It was the first time she had openly shared a part of herself without masks or reservations. The applause wasn't just a response to her story, it was a confirmation of her journey towards embracing vulnerability. The workshop continued, but a fire ignited in Emily. Each story became a catalyst, sparking reflections, revelations, and connections that expanded her vision of what her own project could be. When the session concluded, she chatted with other participants, brainstorming ways they could merge their experiences, creating a collective narrative that fostered authenticity and resilience. But the more she engaged with this community, the more she reflected on the distance still remaining within herself. The journey was far from over. Her heart raced at the thought of sharing her truths in a wider setting, fearing judgment but also craving it. By the time she left the auditorium, the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. She felt transformed yet restless, the embers of her newfound insights burning bright. How far could this vulnerability carry her? As she drove home, a question loomed large: what stories lay ahead, waiting for her to unravel them? And amid the glow of the setting sun, a resolute thought crystallized in her mind: she was ready for the next challenge, whatever it may be. But would she have the courage to confront the most daunting parts of her narrative, or would fear once again cast her into shadow? Emily awoke the next morning with a renewed sense of purpose, the memories of the workshop still fresh in her mind. The applause, the resonant connections, the heartfelt stories, they danced in her thoughts, mingling with an urgency to take her revelations and turn them into action. She realized she could no longer simply document her experiences passively. It was time to actively pursue her narrative, to transform it into something meaningful that could impact her students and beyond. As she sipped her coffee, Emily pulled out her notebook. The pages were emblazoned with her emotional discoveries from the workshop, yet they felt only like the warm-up to something greater. She began to outline a project that embraced vulnerability and storytelling, envisioning it as a way for her students to find and share their own voices. But as she crafted her ideas, a familiar tension crept in: what if they rejected her? What if her pursuit of authenticity only unearthed ridicule? Those questions clawed at her, mingling fear with determination. She had spent too long sculpting an image of an unflappable teacher, and now, laying bare her insecurities felt like an invitation for judgment. But wasn't that the essence of what she wanted to teach? To show her students, and herself, that vulnerability was a strength, not a liability. With every stroke of her pen, Emily forged a pact with herself: she would not shy away from discomfort. This project had to reflect her journey and inspire others to navigate their own labyrinth of fears and aspirations. It wasn't merely about storytelling, it was about cultivating resilience and being open to the unpredictable twists life threw her way. After drafting an outline, Emily reached out to a few of her closest colleagues for feedback. The thought of presenting her ideas made her stomach tighten, her heart pulsed against her chest as she stood before them in the teacher's lounge. "I have an idea for a new project," she began, her voice stronger than her nerves suggested. "It's about sharing our stories and being vulnerable." She spoke about the workshop, how the process had opened her eyes to both her students and her own struggles. "I want to create a space where we can explore our vulnerabilities in a supportive setting." The room was silent, and for a moment, Emily braced herself for dismissive glances or patronizing smiles. But her colleagues leaned in, intrigued. Suggestions flowed like water, evolving her idea into something expansive and communal. Each contribution nested within her initial vision, weaving in their own experiences into the fabric of Emily's newfound path. As one teacher shared a poignant story from their childhood, Emily felt a wave of empathy wash over her. It was clear that this project had the potential to foster not just connections among students but also to strengthen the bonds between educators. With fresh ideas swirling in her mind, she spent the following weeks refining her project. Emily envisioned workshops for her students, pairing storytelling with artistic expression, poetry, visual arts, and even digital mediums. She would navigate the doubts that shadowed her every step, ensuring others had the tools to confront their fears alongside her. Yet, beneath this excitement simmered a current of anxiety. What if vulnerable storytelling in the classroom stirred up painful memories? And would the students respond or recoil? Emily reminded herself that every challenge was part of her growth process. It was about showing that authenticity could exist even in discomfort. The first workshop day arrived, and as she stood before her eager students, her palms felt damp with anticipation. Each face reflected curiosity and hesitation. Today, she said with a steady voice, we explore the stories that make us who we are. But just like her own heart, unease pulsed through the room. Each student held personal narratives tightly, fearing release. Emily realized that this was just the beginning. Could she guide them through their tension, or would fear prevail, stifling their voices? Before they even had a chance to speak. As the workshop unfolded, Emily felt both the weight of responsibility and the flicker of hope. One brave student asking to share could tip this fragile balance. Would today be the day they collectively embraced their vulnerabilities, or would they retreat into their shells, leaving her to question her own resolve once more? As Emily stood at the front of the classroom, a quiet thrumming of uncertainty coursed through her. She could practically feel the collective breath of her students, a tension that could be cut with a knife. The room was palpable with doubt, hers and theirs. She glanced around, catching the eyes of each student, searching for a spark that might ignite conversation. Yet, each gaze seemed to deflect like a shield, impenetrable and closed off. Let us start with a simple exercise, she proposed, her voice steadying, drawing from the well of self-assurance she had mustered over the past weeks. Take a moment to think about a story that has shaped your life. It doesn't have to be fancy or polished, just something real. She watched their reactions, some showed glimmers of interest, while others sank deeper into themselves, their faces betraying trepidation. As silence enveloped the room, Emily felt her heart race. What if they never opened up? What if her effort to facilitate vulnerability had been in vain? The stakes felt towering, almost insurmountable. Let us try something, she said after a moment of contemplation. I'll share a story of my own. If I go first, perhaps it'll feel a bit easier for you. Drawing in a deep breath, Emily began recounting a pivotal moment from her past, a time when she felt lost and adrift after a particularly challenging year, how the experience had reshaped her perspectives. As she spoke, her nerves began to ebb. It was liberating to embody vulnerability and give voice to her fears. There was a power in sharing, a potential shift in not just her students' attitudes but in her own, too. After finishing, she looked up to find the students were leaning in. Some had dropped their barriers, curiosity now piquing their interest. Thank you for sharing, Ms. Sanders, whispered one student, a soft-spoken girl in the back. I didn't know it was okay to feel that way. Emily seized this moment. That's exactly it. It's more than okay, it's essential to recognize our feelings. Who else has a story to tell? She surveyed the room, seeking the next brave soul to break the dam. The hesitant silence mixed with anticipation was almost tangible. Finally, a boy at the front, visibly shaken but with a flicker of courage igniting in his eyes, raised his hand. I have something, he stammered, his words fumbling but imbued with determination. As he began to speak, Emily felt 1,000 emotions leap within her. They were united in this shared space, transformed through storytelling. With each voice that followed, Emily's heart expanded, nurtured by the bravery radiating throughout the room. Each story unveiled another thread that wove them tightly together. The stories varied, but the essence, the raw vulnerability, remained constant. As the final student shared, Emily grappled with an overwhelming wave of gratitude and pride. See how powerful you are. she exclaimed, words surging forth. Every story matters. Every struggle matters. You've just shown that vulnerability creates strength. The class erupted in a new energy, the room glowing with camaraderie born from their shared journeys. Yet as the bell rang, signaling the end of their first workshop, a shadow flickered across Emily's mind. What would she do next? The workshop had been a success, yes, but could she maintain this level of engagement? Would her students feel comfortable sharing again? Each session would demand new stories, new emotions. What if the weight of expectation crushed their emerging confidence? As she collected papers, a voice in her mind whispered doubts, unresolved yet blaring. A tantalizing thrill mixed with anxiety settled in. The first step had been taken, but the journey lay ahead still. Outside the classroom, Emily walked into the bustling hallway, surrounded by the echo of students and the rhythm of their voices, yet her thoughts lingered on the complex tapestry they had just begun weaving. Would the next workshop stories mirror these, or pull her into uncharted depths? The pulse of uncertainty beckoned, urging her to confront what lay beyond the accomplishments of today. How would she lead this evolution further into their explorations, both for the students and for herself? In the weeks that followed, Emily fully immersed herself in the development of her storytelling workshops. The inaugural session had opened a floodgate of potential students were eager to share, and with that eagerness came an overwhelming sense of responsibility. Their stories painted vivid landscapes, each a profound testament to their resilience, but also a reminder of her own vulnerabilities yet to be explored. With each subsequent workshop, Emily felt her confidence solidify. The fear of judgment that once held her captive was now a distant echo, transformed into an invigorating force. She designed her curriculum intentionally, incorporating elements of creative expression that allowed her students to explore their narratives in multifaceted ways: poetry, art, and even digital storytelling. The classroom became a sanctuary where ideation flourished. Emily reveled in each interaction. Students shared stories that layered their experiences with raw emotion, building bridges of understanding among peers. Each narrative was a beacon highlighting struggles, yet also illuminating paths of growth. The vulnerability they exhibited ignited a sense of solidarity. Emily realized the lesson was reciprocal. She was learning just as much from them as they did from her. Today, let us try something different, Emily suggested one day, excitement bubbling just beneath her composed exterior. I want each of you to partner up, share your stories, and help each other craft them into a single narrative that integrates both perspectives. Think of it as a small collaboration. The students exchanged glances, a spark of interest kindling between them. As they broke into pairs, Emily moved through the room, listening to fragments of shared experiences turn into unified tales. Her heart swelled. The classroom had evolved from a place of singular voices to a chorus of creative energy. Yet, amidst the enthusiasm, a nagging doubt accompanied her. How long could she sustain this momentum? She had cultivated an environment rich in trust and transparency, yet the fear of stagnation lurked ominously in the background. Would they grow tired of exploring their insecurities, or worse, would the wall of vulnerability collapse under the weight of expectation? During one workshop, as Emily sat with her students reflecting on the concept of resilience, a profound realization washed over her. Resilience isn't simply about withstanding hardships, she began, her voice strong and filled with conviction. It's also about allowing ourselves to feel deeply, to express those emotions, and to weave them into our narratives. It's okay to struggle, it's how we rise that defines us. As she articulated this, Emily recognized a transformation occurring within herself. She was no longer just teaching the concept, she had embraced it. The workshop was not merely a vehicle for her students' growth but an avenue for her own. Trusting her voice had begun to unlock an authenticity within her that she had long withheld. One afternoon, after another successful session, Emily stumbled upon Derek in the faculty lounge, an unanticipated encounter that sent ripples of uncertainty through her newfound resolve. "Hey, Emily," he greeted casually, with a tone that seemed genuinely inquisitive rather than skeptical. "How's your project going?" Without hesitation, she responded, "Remarkably well, actually." The students are opening up in ways I never thought possible, and I'm learning just as much through their stories." As words spilled from her, Emily felt a rush of radiance, the pride palpable. This was her accomplishment. She had fostered an environment of vulnerability, and in doing so, unlocked her own potential. "I'd like to see your process, maybe collaborate," he suggested, an earnestness in his voice that surprised her. It seemed their previous encounters had shifted. Derek was no longer an antagonist in her story but potentially an ally. Intrigued but cautious, she considered the proposal. "I think that could work. I'm open to exploring new perspectives." It was an admission of vulnerability, a willingness to connect beyond prior animosities. This could lead to a collaboration that enriched both their narratives. As the weeks turned into months, Emily's confidence blossomed. Invitations to present at educational seminars and workshops began pouring in. Her story, once rooted in struggle and isolation, resonated with wider audiences, igniting conversations about vulnerability and creative storytelling in education. The change in her professional trajectory was profound. She was not merely an educator but a champion for change in her community. The culmination of her journey arrived when she was invited to lead a keynote session at a prestigious educator's conference. The anticipation thrummed in her core, an electric mix of exhilaration and trepidation. Standing backstage, she clutched her great-grandmother's pendant, feeling the weight of her legacy and the stories of resilience woven through her lineage. As she stepped onto the stage, the lights shone brightly, illuminating her path. The audience sat expectant, and in that moment, Emily understood the significance of vulnerability, not just for herself but for the countless educators and students waiting to hear their stories validated. Her voice rang out, clear and strong. She spoke of connection, of the powerful healing that succumbs to narratives, emphasizing the strength to be found in vulnerability. Each word launched towards the crowd rippled outward, resonating, connecting. Emily poured her heart into the presentation, bearing her soul much like her students had done in their own workshops. The applause at the conclusion felt like a chorus enveloping her, affirming her journey, her purpose. As she stepped off the stage, tears blurred her vision. In that moment of recognition and celebration, she felt solidified in her identity, no longer a ghost drifting through the hallways of her past. She had achieved a profound transformation. She was now an empowered figure, a mentor who faced fears with determination, and encouraged others to do the same. The return to her classroom was triumphant. Standing before her students, she realized that she was now more than just a teacher. She was a living testament to the transformative power of storytelling and vulnerability. Emily had conquered not only the shadows of her doubt but established herself as a powerful force, ready to nurture the next generation of voices. The moments we dare to share, the stories we speak, those become milestones forged through vulnerability. In achieving this shared connection, Emily unlocked a legacy not just for herself, but for all those ready to rise beyond their challenges. And thus, the journey continued. The tale of Emily Sanders lingered in the echoes of her classroom, each day inviting new narratives yet to be spun. This was her world now, alive with possibility, and she was ready to embrace every moment of it. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it truly makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending, we want to hear from you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.